The United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense latest intelligence update on Ukraine, October 1, 2023. Leaked documents from Russia's finance ministry suggest a surge in defense spending to around 30% of total public expenditure in 2024. The proposed defense budget stands at 10.8 trillion rubles, equaling approximately 6% of GDP, and a 68% increase over 2023. Russia can likely sustain this level of defense spending through 2024, but only at the detriment of broader economic growth. Exact figures on Russian defense spending are classified, but the leaks imply preparations for several more years of fighting in Ukraine. This aligns with recent comments by Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu on September 27, 2023, stating readiness to continue the conflict into 2025. The considerable hike in defense allocation, despite economic sanctions and contraction, demonstrates Russia's commitment to its invasion of Ukraine. This intelligence update indicates the Kremlin is gearing up for a protracted campaign rather than a quick resolution. The Ukrainian Armed Forces General Staff update on day 585 of Russia's attempted invasion. Key developments included Russia conducting dozens of airstrikes across Ukraine, including in the Kyiv, Kharkiv, Donetsk, and Kherson regions. Ukraine claimed 16 Russian drones were shot down. In Donbas, fighting continued around Bakhmut and Avdiivka, where Russia unsuccessfully tried to regain lost ground. Ukraine repelled several attacks near Marinka as well. Civilian areas across Donbas were heavily shelled. Further south, Ukraine repelled an attack near Novoderivka in the Zaporizhia region. The city of Kherson and surrounding areas also endured more shelling, causing further damage and casualties. Overall, Russia continues to rely heavily on long-range strikes against civilian targets rather than gain territory through ground offensive. Ukraine maintains operational momentum in some areas like Melitopol and Bakhmut, but faces constant shelling across the front line. Going forward, Ukraine appears focused on preserving defenses in Donbas while awaiting promised Western tanks and armored vehicles to launch a broader counteroffensive. Russia seems unlikely to gain significant new ground amid Ukraine's staunch resistance. The war's human toll on both military personnel and civilians continues to increase. The Institute for the Study of War Russian Offensive Campaign Assessment. The situation in western Zaporizhia Oblast remains fluid as Ukrainian and Russian forces vie for control of key terrain. Recent social media footage indicates that Russian troops have regained some lost trench positions near Robotyne, about 1 kilometer southwest of the town along the TO408 road to Tokmak. This area has seen several back-and-forth exchanges as both sides conduct localized counterattacks amidst Ukraine's broader counteroffensive. While Ukraine likely held parts of this trench line as of mid-September, it appears that Russian forces have recaptured segments of it over the past 2 weeks. The ebb and flow of such small-scale actions exemplifies the intense combat over tactically significant terrain that is currently ongoing in this sector. As Ukrainian troops press their counteroffensive, Russian forces are conducting elastic defenses and tactical counterattacks to slow their advance and retain control of key positions. The situation remains highly fluid and will likely see further give and take in the coming days and weeks. The Institute for the Study of War key takeaways today. Russia continues to falsely portray Western military aid to Ukraine as escalatory, likely to discourage further support. The future of the Wagner Group remains uncertain amidst reported negotiations with the Russian government. Its ability to re-emerge as an effective fighting force depends on whether it can reconstitute itself under Russian structures. Russia conducted additional drone strikes across Ukraine overnight. Russian offensive operations proceeded along multiple fronts, achieving marginal gains in western Zaporizhia. Russia officially commenced its regular fall conscription cycle, aiming to address personnel losses. Ukraine's counteroffensives continue pressuring overstretched Russian lines. Western aid will be crucial in enabling Ukraine to sustain this momentum. Russia is attempting to fracture Western resolve, but Ukraine's recent successes indicate that unity and support must persist. Broe update. The U.S. government averted a shutdown, which is important for continued military aid to Ukraine. Biden signed a 45-day funding bill. Some House Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz oppose Ukraine aid, promoting Kremlin talking points. This risks chaos and disorder that helps Putin. Speaker McCarthy relies on some Republican opponents of Ukraine aid to retain speakership, but most in Congress still strongly support Ukraine. The Pentagon has exhausted Ukraine funding, but ongoing aid will continue. More funding urgently needed to avoid lapse. Celebrities like Elon Musk are undermining Ukraine support on Twitter, spreading Russian disinformation. Evidence shows horrifying torture of Ukrainian prisoners of war by Russia, contrasting with humane treatment of Russian prisoners of war. Russia is cozying up to the Taliban, aiming to gain regional influence in Central Asia. Russia claims no new mobilization, but is still conscripting men. May draft occupied Ukrainians too. Video shows doomed Russian soldiers sent with no support to certain death. Friendly fire may have downed a Russian jet. Overall, the update covers continued strong bipartisan U.S. support for Ukraine, despite some opposition voices amplifying Kremlin propaganda. Funding urgently needed to sustain aid. Russia still sacrificing ill-equipped troops. Ukrainian resilience shines through dark times.